Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, John, for inviting me. I'm excited to be here and show you some things that I have worked on and things that I'm planning to work on here in Buffalo. I wanted to start with, this is my Instagram handle, so if you're interested in following me on Instagram, I love that program and I take a lot of pictures. This is my dog's Instagram handle. He's pretty amazing, so I just wanted to give you that. This is him at work. He's really busy a lot. And then this is him just being really cute. That's my husband, Nick, who's in the audience. He's the Miller of the Radams Miller. So I've been in Buffalo since March, and I wanted to show you guys a few things that I just really love about Buffalo so far. This flag. I don't know if everybody knows about this flag. I don't really even know about this flag, but the first time we saw it, we were at Community Beer Works having a beer, and we just kind of fell in love with it. It's a really amazing city flag, and I think that we should all be proud of it. This bar, I mean, you have to love Founding Fathers. I don't know if everybody does. If you've been there. If you haven't been there, it's around the corner. The first Hallwalls exhibition I went to, we went to there afterwards, and it was amazing. 5 Points Bakery. This is my neighborhood. It's delicious, and I would eat there every day if I could. This house, Darwin Martin House, been there twice so far. We'll go again. Anybody want to go? I will go with you. It's really wonderful. I'm kind of an architecture nut, so it's just really wonderful to have this place in Buffalo. And we haven't been to Grey Cliff yet, but that's on the agenda. These grain silos. I'm working on a show, I think for 2018, which will be about industry, so keep an eye out for that. I'm not going to talk about that tonight because I have no idea yet what it's about, but it will be in the future talk. This park, amazing. I mean, it was voted the #1 state park in the country, and Nick and I were actually there the day that they were celebrating that, and they gave out free cupcakes and Arnold Palmers. It was amazing. We were super happy. And also vintage Buffalo Bills gear. I love that everybody in the city is really amazing about wearing vintage Buffalo Bills gear. This isn't the last one. This is in, I think, the Art Voice or the Public, I can't remember, but it's the wedding announcement for Uncle Jesse from Full House, and I just think it's hilarious. It's in there every week. So those are some things that I've just love about Buffalo so far. I know that there's going to be a lot more of them since we've only been here since March, but I thought I would show you those to break the ice a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some past curatorial work. I went to the Art Institute of Chicago for undergrad. I thought I was going to be a photographer, and I left as a curator. And I stayed in Chicago for a couple of years. Afterwards, I started a gallery called Lloyd Dobler Gallery, which is named after John Cusack's character in the movie Say Anything, the one where he holds up the boombox. It was started by my friend Trish and I, and we decided to call it Lloyd Dobler as kind of a just sort of make fun of everybody that names their gallery after themselves. And originally we were going to call it Lane Meyer because that was his other role in Better Off Dead, but we thought that sounded too New York. So we went with Lloyd Dobler. And when we originally started the gallery, we would sign all of our emails Lloyd, and people would come and be like, who's Lloyd? When can I meet Lloyd? And we're like, Lloyd is us. It's not real. But after running that gallery, and that was an apartment gallery for a couple of years, I moved to San Francisco for graduate school. And in San Francisco, I was working very hard on my graduate degree, but I missed the idea, I missed doing shows, I missed putting together shows and working with artists. I was working at the gallery at the San Francisco Art Institute, installing shows and being a gallery assistant there, but those weren't my shows. So I was able to put together a group show there called Interrupting a Beam of Light at David Cunningham Projects, which was this really amazing gallery in the Mission that closed, unfortunately, soon after this show. It was one of the last shows, and David, unfortunately, passed away earlier this year, which was very sad. But he was really wonderful to work with, and I had kind of done an internship there for a previous show, and I went to him and I asked him, proposed the show to him, and he said yes. And Interrupting a Beam of Light was an exhibition that focused on contemporary works that dealt with the wonder of natural and man-made phenomena, the nuances of magic, and the importance of retaining lore and myth in our everyday lives. It was a 13-artist group show, and actually 2 of them were Buffalo artists, which is really funny. One is John Opera, which I don't know if anybody is familiar with John's work, but he lives in Chicago now. I know him from Chicago, but he is a Buffalo native. And then another is actually Gigi Gatewood, whose mother works at the Albright, which I just found out about. I do a lot of big group shows. John just mentioned Splitting Light, which is a 10-person group show. I really love being able to bring artists together that may never have kind of been put together before, and to really make connections through artists' work. It's just something that I do a lot, so you'll see that in the next couple of years, I'm sure. So speaking of Queen's Nails, this was a video project that my co-curator and I, Zoe Talporis, put together at Queen's Nails, and then we actually showed it in Austin as well a year later. It was called QMTV, and it was sort of a riff off of MTV, and it was about artists that made music videos, and it's really fun. I'm always happy to screen it. We had some really great artists in it, My Barbarian from LA. This piece, Eli Kim, who I think he's actually like a designer for MAC makeup now, but he did this piece when he was in grad school in Yale, and it's 100 days, 100 dances, 100 songs, and you should definitely Google it, and anytime you're having a bad day, you should watch it. It's 9 minutes long. I actually showed this piece again in Austin. We had a video screen in the elevator of our building, and we were able to, it was called Lift Projects. And this one we kept up for a while because literally the doors would open and people would be dancing in there. It was pretty wonderful. I watched it today, actually. It's really good still. So those are some things I did during grad school. I was, busy writing a thesis and working at several jobs and everything, but I was very happy to be able to have curated there as well and work with some great institutions. We moved to Austin in 2010, right after grad school, and I worked at this place called Art House at the Jones Center, which then became the Contemporary Austin. And Art House was a Kunsthalle, so they didn't have a collection. When we moved there, we were in the midst of renovating this beautiful building, kind of right downtown Austin on Congress Avenue, and had been there for, that building had been there for a long time. It was originally a movie theater, and Art House had bought it in the 90s and had sort of renovated it a couple of times. And this was the big renovation to make it like the cool place to go in Austin. So I was super glad to be able to come on board there. I was hired as their curator of public programs originally, but then became their associate curator of exhibitions and public programs, longest title in the world. But it was really great because I immediately kind of got thrown into this wonderful artistic community and meeting lots of people, being able to work with people from UT as well as artists in the community, and then bringing in things. A show that I did there that I was really excited about was called Hybrid Forms, and this was actually done right after Art House merged with the Austin Museum of Art, and at one point we were called AMOA Art House, which is the worst name ever, until they voted on a new name, which was the Contemporary. But AMOA had a collection, and so this was sort of the first time that I got to work with a collection. And they had a piece by Jim Campbell, they had a piece by, and a piece by Namjoon Paik, which you can see, oh, sorry, that's right here, and it sort of inspired me to create a show about artwork that is both sculpture and like video or media. I'm just gonna read this little description. Hybrid Forms was an exhibition by 10 artists whose practices cross disciplines. Made in the last decade, each piece is a sculpture that incorporates digital technology, video, sound, and light. The exhibition begins conceptually with Namjoon Paik's altered analog television, first created in 1963, and continues through Kurt Mueller's interactive karaoke machine made in response to President Obama's election. The exhibition offered quite an alternative to the bombardment of media that has characterized a decade of massive technological growth. So this is an installation shot. This is Kurt Mueller's American Dream, which was also owned by the museum. And this was actually, you could give Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech in the gallery. That was the karaoke part of it. So what you heard was the crowd clapping and cheering, and then you could actually give the speech. And then I was able to borrow a couple of pieces from some local collections. This Paul Pfeiffer is owned by the Linda Pace Foundation in San Antonio, which is his Miss America piece, where he erases Miss America, and you just see the crown kind of moving around as she's moving and getting her picture taken. And then this really wonderful Leo Villareal Horizon 24 that was owned by the Blanton Museum, which is the UT Austin's museum. And this piece changes, I think it does something like 1 million different color combinations. So it was constantly changing throughout the day. And we had this really beautiful concrete floor so you could see the reflection. It was a really meditative piece. I show a lot of meditative work, I think, personally. That was a really great show. I was very happy to be able to do that there and be able to work with both the Amoa Art House collection as well as some local collectors. The first solo museum show I did was Seher Shah's Constructed Landscapes, and she is an artist that I found. I think I got an email about a show that she was having at some gallery in New York, and I immediately printed it out, and I immediately called the gallery, and I was like, who is this person? Tell me everything. And went up to New York as soon as I could and did a studio visit with her. As I mentioned, I'm sort of an architecture nut. I'm really interested in this crossover between visual art and architecture and how artists use space in different ways. And Seher explores ideas of large-scale urban relics in the landscape, such as monuments, buildings, and cenotaphs. This was actually kind of a small show, but it was sort of a survey in a way. It was 5 works that she makes a lot of work, but these were sort of 5 sort of seminal pieces that she had made between 2009 and 2013. This is a detail of that grid piece right here in front, aerial landscapes. And then these 2 pieces were, it's my favorite in the show, geometric landscapes and the spectacle of force, and then the mirror spectacle. And these were on view for the first time together. They used archival imagery from 1903 Delhi fairground at the British coronation ceremony. So when a new king was coronated, or queen, outside of Delhi, they would build this grand landscape where people would come, and there was a post office, and there was grandstands, and all of these things. And so Seher actually got this grant to go to the British Library and research all of this, and she created sort of an insider's view and an outsider's view. And these spaces were really, the spaces that she created, I felt were like really wonderful. She really incorporated elements of architecture, redrawn historical imagery, and then the repetition of structural forms. This is her unité drawing, which this is gouache and graphite. It's 6 by 8 feet. And she actually, I think it took her about 4.5 months to draw this. It re-articulates the iconic French architect Corbusier's Unité de Habitation building, which was a low-income housing project in Marseille. And in Shah's hands, she took the regimented form of the building and disassembled that, basically flattened it, which I really thought was wonderful. And then the last piece in the show is object repetition, line to distance. This is 1,000 cast pieces that she made. And we installed it right. We had these amazing storefront windows at the Jones Center, which is what Art House of the Jones Center is now called, the Jones Center. And it speaks to sort of, has that repetition that she constantly uses in her work, but really like bringing the reductive geometric form that references both buildings and monolithic objects. And then this is sort of an overview piece. Overview image. I did another show when we merged, we had the building downtown that I had been working in, and then also inherited a 13-acre sculpture park that had a historic home on it and a gatehouse that had been turned into a gallery. And so we started using the gatehouse as kind of a Texas project space for young Texas artists. And Erin Curtis, who's actually in the show, in the Splitting Light show, she's the one that did the window piece at the CFA. So if you go, or if you haven't gone yet, make sure to look at that. It's a double-sided piece. And I had actually asked her to do that kind of based on this painting that she had made for Furthest West. She really marries her like interest in craft and textiles with modernist architecture and furniture. And her work is very colorful, sort of this really interesting hybrid practice that she has. So this piece, you would walk into the gallery, and she actually painted the floor as well. And then this was the other side of it. And she was really influenced by, she spent a lot of time in India, and as she walked the streets in India, she would see like these little slits in the curtains that women would, sort of like look just with one eye out into the street to kind of see what was happening. And so this painting was really inspired by that time. And then she had a couple other paintings in the show, and then these benches she actually made that were also inspired by some Indian furniture that she had seen, but it was made out of parachute cord. But you could sit on it and look at the painting across. And then we had some sculpture outside, which she had been commissioned to do a big public art piece in Austin, which is unfortunately, she said, still not done. But she made some extra pieces, and so we were able to kind of put them outside leaning into, you kind of walked through this arbor into this space. I left the museum for various reasons, and I was able to, we stayed in Austin until March of last year, or of this year, I should say. And I became an independent curator, and I did a lot of writing as well. And this show I did with Justin Cooper, who's an artist out of New York, who I also know from Chicago. And Test Site is a space that's actually a collector's home. And it used to be a frat house, which is kind of funny. And I invited Justin to collaborate with me on this work, to do a solo show at Test Site. And what I love about Justin's work, he's a very quirky guy. But he works with a lot of very everyday materials. Like Home Depot is his studio, basically. He'll tell you like wheelbarrows and garden hose and rebar and PVC pipe. Like those are his favorite things. So he created all new work for this show, mostly out of garden hose. So here are some installations that he did inside. And this was actually, what's really great for me when I love working with artists and being able to give them new opportunities, because this was the first time that he'd actually made discrete sculptures out of his garden hoses before and really interacted with architecture, especially the architecture of this house in particular. The one thing that the collector who owns the house asks is that it still has to be a functional house. He has people over there, he has people working there. You need to be able to like sit down, eat at the dining room table. So Justin was able to kind of do these interventions in the house with the architecture. And then we spilled out into the backyard, and he did this massive hose installation back there, which sort of went up into trees. And he really attributes it to like drawing in space. He threads the hose with, it's like a rebar. It's like a bendable rebar, different sizes. And what I love is like the different colors of the hose interacting with each other, and just, I felt really lucky because Nick and I actually both installed this show and became kind of his studio assistants for the week, because he really bends everything with his body, but I was able to like really work with him collaboratively on like where things should go and what things look like, and that's always really fun for me. Going back to the contemporary, I had some projects that I was finishing up there, and I had been working on a big commission with this artist, John Grade from Seattle. And he had originally proposed to do something in the lagoon that we had, but various reasons we didn't do that. But he did create Canopy Tower, which is the suspended 35-foot sculpture that is suspended from 3 trees. And he's an avid traveler, so he really pulls his like influence from things such as like that he finds in the Arctic Circle to like the desert. He's really interested in how artwork weathers over time and how time affects how we view things. So this piece is made out of ipe wood, which it'll eventually kind of get gray because it's not treated. So it's going to change that way. But what he was really inspired at the sculpture park was that it's a peninsula, and so the wind comes in off Lake Austin. And he was really interested in the wind, and so he created this piece where it actually moves with the wind. So it's up in the trees. I think it's suspended by a rebar ring and then hung. And so when the wind comes in, this actually moves. It becomes more of like an oval shape than a round shape, and it creaks, and you can stand actually inside of it and look up into the tree canopy and sort of have this really singular experience of you being inside of the sculpture, and then you can have a sort of secondary experience of just watching it from afar. It's also kind of off the beaten path, so you have to sort of go find it, which is really kind of, to go seek it out, which is really what I really like about that sculpture park in general, because it's sort of chaotic and really jungly when it's green, and so it's kind of a fun place to go traipse around and find artwork. In 2014, September, I became the Curator-in-Residence at this Contemporary Art Center in Portland, Oregon called Disjecta. And it's actually a really great program and similar kind of to Hallwalls here, although they don't have enough money to actually have a full-time curator, and so they've been doing this Curator-in-Residence program where they bring in a new curator every year to do the whole season for them. And so I was the curator for 2014 through 2015. And the space is really cavernous and huge, and so when I proposed my season, I really, again, started talking about that intersection between art and architecture and artists that really dealt with that. So the first show that I did there was this piece, the show called Untitled Horizons, which was Claire Ashley, who's from Chicago, and Bahar Yurukoglu, who lives in Istanbul now, but originally she was in Boston. And they really created an immersive, site-responsive exhibition examining the relationship between geometric abstraction, landscape, and architecture. Claire makes these giant inflatable pieces, and she is a professor at School of the Art Institute, and she lives in Oak Park, and every day she teaches, she takes the train in from Oak Park to downtown Chicago. And she said she's always inspired by sort of like the whizzing by of the buildings and the graffiti and everything that kind of comes together. And so her work has this, the inflatable is made out of like a Tyvek, white Tyvek, and then she paints these like really bright, amazing abstracted paintings on top of them. And when I asked her and Bahar to do the show, Bahar actually works with a lot of projection, and so they collaborated on this piece, which they called B15. Bahar is really interested in the Arctic and had done a residency in the Arctic and had just done it previously, just did a new one this summer. So Claire said, well, I'll make you an iceberg. And so B15 is actually the largest iceberg, or it was the largest iceberg in the world at the time of this show. And so Claire made this giant iceberg for Bahar, which I think it's pretty tall, about 20 feet tall. And Bahar was able to project on it from all different sides. And then here's another angle of the projected one in the foreground, and then another one of Claire's pieces in the background. And then Bahar had this corner projection as well. And this was a really playful, kind of crazy experience for me. I felt that I had been really curating. I mean, even though like Aaron's work was very colorful and Justin's work was kind of, really a lot of movement going on, it still felt like very calculated, and this show didn't feel like that at all in a way, which I really liked. And part of the sort of residency at Disjecta was to just be able to experiment and have this space and have a little bit of a budget and just kind of go crazy in a way. So that was the first show that I did. I did 2 shows afterwards. And then the last show I did was with Andy Coolquitt, who's an Austin-based artist. And Andy is a found object artist. He sort of traipses around his neighborhood and collects things, brings them back to the studio, makes beautiful, like, discrete objects. And he had done a residency in Marfa, and so I had invited him to Portland, and I had gotten a residency for him. So I was like, you know what, you can do whatever you want. I'm just like, I'm gonna let you do whatever you want, which I'm usually like fine with it. So Andy did this crazy installation, which I'm gonna show you a video of. This is the title. So when he got to Portland, he actually drove from Austin, and he said, I was having this great drive. It was beautiful, it was sunny throughout the Southwest and all the way up through California. It was gorgeous, and as soon as I got to Portland, it just started pouring. And as I said, he's a found object artist. He usually rides his bike around his neighborhood and puts things in his basket and takes them back. So everything was wet. Everything was rainy. He just kind of got really inspired by that. Oh. Sorry, how do I make this full screen? Oh, there. So this is a video of the installation afterwards. And he basically made it rain inside the gallery. He built several fountains. He made a lot of video about pipe sculptures and rain and broken gutters. He had this crazy fan spinning out of control. It was actually very dangerous. There was a warning that we had put down that you had to stay on these planks that we actually wet down several times throughout the day because he wanted them to be slippery and wet, and he wanted it to smell like mold and wet in there. And it really, he really created an immersive space that was loud and wet and cold, and basically he brought the inside, like Portland in the winter, indoors in Disjecta. These are pieces that he found at a plumbing place that pipes had been sitting on. This is one of his fountains that he made. So it was really kind of there were cords hanging down from the ceiling, and a lot of safety workers kind of telling you to be cautious. So this was sort of the culmination of my residency in Portland, and I was really thrilled with it. It really turned out very well. It was nothing that I expected when I invited him to do, but I was really happy with what happened, and he was really happy because he was able to experiment. He'd never done video before. He had never had this much space to really play around with, and really, it was very theatrical, which is something that he's not. So it was kind of an opposite thing for him.
What was the budget?
For that show, I think that was less than $10,000. Basically, the budget for the whole year was like $40,000. And I did 4 shows, but that also like paid myself, and we're doing a catalog, so it was pretty small. Okay. Are there any questions so far? That's the end of my past work. Okay. So, moving forward to exhibitions in Buffalo, I don't know if anybody saw Amanda Browder's piece that we did at the UB Anderson Gallery that's now actually hanging in the light well at the CFA. But I wanted to show this image, which sort of gives you, hopefully, like a preview of the fact that I really want both the Center for the Arts Gallery and the Anderson Gallery. I want people to realize that they're the same organization. They're run by the same people, which is Sandy Olson and Bob and myself. I really want them to have more of a relationship. So you'll be seeing a lot more work that kind of crosses over between the two spaces, both shows that might be in both spaces, or one artist in particular, or something of that sort. So still working out a lot of that thing. But Amanda's was sort of the first way to do it. And I really loved being able to work on this project with her because we invited the community into the seminar room to help sew with us and, basically adorn this building, which at the opening, I can't even tell you the number of people that told me they had never even been on that side of the building before, which is kind of crazy. But I actually think it's the more interesting side of the building. But that's just me, because I like old architecture. So I'm not going to talk about Splitting Light because it's up and I want you to go see it. And if you come see it, I will personally walk you around and talk to you about it there. I want to talk to you about some upcoming shows that I'm planning. The first will be the show that's happening at the CFA next. And I'm going to play, I'm hoping the soundtrack will just play and I can still show you images. I put it down here, didn't I? So this is Ragnar Kjartansson. This is, for me, this is like my most favorite piece I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm bringing it here to show you guys, which you should be all really excited about. Ragnar is an Icelandic artist who grew up in a family of performers. And this piece is a 9-channel video piece that he did with a bunch of friends in the Hudson Valley. I think they filmed it in 2012. I should know that. This is Ragnar. They're each found in a different room of this like sprawling mansion, which is sort of decrepit and falling apart. And there's actually a really interesting New York Times article just about the mansion itself and the people that live there. But they're all wearing headphones and they're singing this song that Ragnar's ex-wife. Do I need this? Is this too loud? Can you hear me? That Ragnar's ex-wife wrote. And so there's 8 performers. They're all musicians, obviously. Ragnar's really interested in durational performance and the repetition of words. So as you can already hear that, they've been repeating this phrase. I can't show you the video because you're gonna have to wait until February. But these are some stills. So the last screen is actually a bunch of people that live in the house and friends and neighbors sitting on the porch. They're also singing. And there's also a guy with a cannon, and the cannon goes off twice during the performance. So that's why this is a little cloudy. So it's right after the cannon went off. As you might have already seen, I work a lot with video installation. I'm really interested in artists that do that. And I showed one of Ragnar's pieces before in Austin, which was a performance that he filmed of this old Delta blues musician named Pinetop Perkins that he saw play at a blues festival in Reykjavik and then asked to film and flew to Austin where Pinetop lived and filmed him playing a stand-up piano in the middle of a field. And Pinetop's performances were usually very repetitive in and of themselves. So he basically played shave and a haircut several times for an hour. There's something that sort of this kind of like transcendental meditative experience that happens when you're experiencing one of his videos or one of his performances. And I urge you all to just look him up. He's really fantastic. I'm hoping to get him here. We'll see. Anyway, that is what is coming up at the Center for the Arts in the winter, spring. And it'll be really wonderful when it's horrible weather outside and you can come and sit in our lush, dark space and listen to this piece and experience this piece. It's 64 minutes long, and the first time I saw it, I stayed for like 2.5 hours because I could not leave it. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. So the last thing I'm going to show you is a show that I'm working on for a year from now. Lydia Akumura, who is a Brazilian-born artist. Her parents are Japanese, and she grew up in Brazil, and then now lives in New York City. Lydia was born in 48. This image actually, my really good friend, Jenny, took a picture of for me at the Independent Art Fair this year. I wanted to go, and we had just moved here, and I couldn't get down there. So I told her, like, send me images of anything you think anything that you think is interesting. And she snapped this photo, or the photo of this piece, and sent it to me. And she was like, I can't find the name of the artist. And I was like, go back to the booth and ask them. And she did, and she sent it to me. And I was sitting at my desk and immediately Googled her and was kind of blown away. Lydia has an interest in spatial dynamics that's been a constant in her work since the early 70s. She works with abstraction and balancing line, plane, and shadow. Her hard-edge geometric work like dynamically transforms space. This piece is Prismatic Appearance from 1975. So Lydia was working in Brazil in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s as a young student and then as a working artist. And this is some work that she did at the Pratt Graphic Center. These are some archival images. She ended up working with a collective called Groupo Tres, and they were in the Sao Paulo Biennial in 1973. And this was actually when she really started to develop her own signature style. And a curator, I think from Cranbrook, actually, saw the work and told her that she needed to come to New York. And he wrote her a letter, and she got into the Pratt Graphic Center as another student. She'd kind of finished college already, but went back. And she never really went back to Brazil. I mean, she owns a house in Brazil, and her family was still there, and she went back to do shows, but she ended up living in New York this whole time, making a lot of work. And you'll see that there's 2 dates for a lot of these pieces because she's had to redo everything. A lot of them are site-specific or site-responsive, I should say. So, they were destroyed, or she's done them in people's houses and things like that. But her gallery, which is who is exhibiting her work in the fair, is actually a really interesting gallery. They're called Broadway 1602, and they specialize in under-recognized, more senior artists. So Lydia, she's never had a solo exhibition in the United States before. And so this is her first solo museum show that UB is going to give her, which I'm really excited about. We'll be doing a catalog with the work as well. And what I'm even more excited about is that we're going to be remaking a lot of the work that she made for her solo show that she had at the Museum of Modern Art in Sao Paulo in 1984. And going back again to what I said about connecting the two spaces, I originally wanted to put her work at the Anderson Gallery. So I thought, like, oh, it would be so perfect in there, and it would look really interesting. And then when I was thinking about it, I was like, the Anderson doesn't have any corners. I can't put this work in the Anderson. So we're actually going to do the show, most of the show, the bulk of the show will be at the Center for the Arts. But we're trying to figure out which work, and she's coming in about a month to do a site visit. We're going to put in the atrium space, maybe one or two big pieces, maybe this piece or this piece, which is actually made out of mesh and painted. And I think you can actually walk inside of this. I can't remember if she said that or not, but it's exciting for me to be able to reimagine a lot of this work and for her to actually maybe even create some new work. She started working at the UN in 1989, and kind of her practice dropped off a little bit with that, and has recently kind of obviously started working with this gallery in the past couple of years and just sort of reimagining some work. So I'm kind of thrilled. I'm just going to show a couple more pieces. This is a wall piece. This is another wall piece. For her show in the Modern Art Museum in Sao Paulo, somebody donated a ridiculous amount of this wire mesh. And so she just made like 40 pieces out of this mesh. And a few are still in Sao Paulo, but and she still has a few small ones, but like that big labyrinth piece doesn't exist anymore. So, you know, I think what's exciting about working in an institution like UB, and as you sort of saw through my slideshow, I've done a lot of things really quickly in the past like 5 years. And I'm kind of looking forward to slowing down a little and having some time to like research and work on some catalogs and, you know, have shows up for longer than a couple of weeks, because I think it's really important for people to be able to come back and see them, for, you know, people that are from out of town to come see them, and for the artists to really have the recognition that they deserve. You know, it's a little too hard to do that, especially with a school schedule. So you'll notice that I'm not exactly sure. I think Sandra Furman, my predecessor, used to do about 3 to 4 shows a year at the CFA, and I'll only be doing 2, or 2 iterations. So there might be, you know, multiple things happening, but like Splitting Light is up for basically the whole fall semester, and Ragnar's show will be up for the whole spring semester. So you'll have time to come back and see it again and again. And the same with Lydia's work. But what else I'm really excited about with Lydia's work is that I'm gonna be delving into our collection and really pulling out some work that relates to what she's been doing and putting that in context. You know, and really being able to talk about that and about what we have in our collection and what other artists are doing at different times and in different places and how they connect to each other. So these are just some more pieces. This is one of the cubes that she still has. And then this piece, which I'm thrilled about, is where she actually just redid it in Sao Paulo. But we're gonna put this piece in the light well, it sounds like. So you'll be able to basically like walk in and see this amazing work. And here's some details. It actually has glass in it, so it's just like optically really interesting. And then I don't think you really notice that until you get up close. So here's a sort of side view. And then what's even more exciting is that I finally convinced UB to have a public art committee. And we are actually meeting next week, which is a huge, huge deal. And so trying to activate the campus a lot more. And so with Lydia's work, she had done a series of earthworks in the early 70s, and a few of them were redone this summer. And so she's going to think about a new work, but also possibly, again, restaging some of these pieces, which I think are really exciting. So that is my presentation. I'll just leave it on that image. Are there any questions? Please, maybe?
I'm curious about Lydia's work about the blue and the brown corner pieces. What's the material?
This piece, it's aluminum. It's just paint, string, and aluminum. It's really, you know, really simple materials that she's using. And
So the whole brown piece is a sheet of aluminum?
no, actually just
the bottom? And then it's painted?
this. Yeah, and then that's painted on the wall.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Yeah, I'm kind of thrilled about this find. I feel like you get this sort of like once in your lifetime is to find this amazing artist who immediately you feel really connected with, and then you're able to work with them on a very intimate level and present their work the way that it should be presented to the public. And I'm hoping that, we can kind of put her in the context of her peers, both in Brazil and also in the US, that we're working around the same time as her. So that's my exciting research that I'm going to be doing over the next 6 months. And yeah, it's really kind of thrilling for me. Any other questions? Yes?
It's so exciting to hear you say that you're forming a public art committee and you're going waiting for you for a long time.
Thank you. Well, yeah, there's a lot of space on both campuses, and we do have some outdoor sculpture at Anderson, some of it which is getting conserved finally, which is really great. But I think there's this great, movement towards, and I didn't even really speak about this, sort of both like temporary installations as well as long-term loans and those kind of things. I ran a panel in May as part of the Curators Association of Art Museum Curators conference, and it was about public art. And it brought together the public art curator from University of Texas, which is in a really amazing Landmarks, it's called, really amazing public art collection. And they were very smart because they know, and Texas has a lot of money, UT especially, but they were able to basically create this deal with the Metropolitan Museum of Art because the Met has so much work, and they obviously can't show it all the time. Same thing that the Albright has here and many, many, many institutions, and got like a 25 or 30-year loan for 25 pieces from the Met's collection that are now scattered throughout the UT campus. And then basically building on top of that, bringing in more contemporary artists. And, of course, now they have like a Terrell. But, really like looking at what Andre has done with that program as kind of something that maybe we could do at UB, and work with our local institutions that have a lot of artwork that may or may not be able to be outside or whatnot, just really collaborating with them, but then also doing some more like temporary pieces that would be up for, like Amanda's was up for a week, but I would like longer than that, fabric is not really the best thing to put upside for very long. But yeah, being able to stage things like that and get, the campus activated more is really exciting. And apparently there's money for it, so I'm gonna make it happen. Anything else? Nothing?
Actually, I saw he's Gundar, is that how you say his name?
Oh, Ragnar?
Ragnar, yes. My daughter goes to Kenyon College, and
Yes, they own it.
they own it.
I'm borrowing it from them.
Their own gallery featured it when 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's well received.
Yeah. It's pretty magical, I think. Of course, I'm putting a lot out there saying that it's my favorite piece ever, but I stand by it. Stephanie agrees with me a little bit.
I was very excited.
Yeah. It's really exciting. I'm very excited about it. I will be down there every day watching it, probably for an hour. So if I'm not returning emails, it's because I'm in the work, experiencing it. Yeah.
So you said it's 10 channels?
It's 9 channels. Yeah. So each of these are just a few, but each of them are in a room of a house, and then there's one channel of the porch.
So is the viewer then immersed in the...
Yeah, so if you walk in to where, if you walk into Splitting Light now, there's a wall that has the title wall on it right now. And so that will kind of stay where it is, and you'll walk around that, and there'll be 9 screens on each of the walls. The light well will be there'll be something else in there that'll be related. I kind of had a brainstorm about it, and I'm really excited. However, I won't talk about it yet. But yeah, it'll be really dark, and the screens are going to be 10 feet wide by like 5 feet. So it'll be person size. I mean, you'll really be immersed in it, and there'll be bean bags and things to sit on, and you can kind of just experience it that way.
Was it at Lorraine Augustine?
It was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exciting. Hopefully we get people from all over Western New York to come see it, so tell people about it after you've seen it. I'm relying on, people in this room to talk about what's happening, tell me what's happening, and spread the word, because, especially with the North Campus I keep hearing, oh, it's so hard to park and it's so far away. It's not that far. It took me 15 minutes from my house to there today. I'm just saying, that's not that far. So I know, yeah.
That would really help. I go there and like, like the tree falls on the floor, And it's frustrating in both places. Like, Anderson's counterintuitive to get there, and then the city of the future, North Campus is counterintuitive. And then when you get there, where do you park?
It is frustrating, I understand.
I don't know how you could get, around that with university administrators, but...
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to find parking sometimes, I will admit. But if you come later in the day or on a Saturday, it's better. Or you can call me and I will give you a parking pass and hopefully find you a place.
3 cheers for company seating at video installation.
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely, especially long ones. Although the thing about this piece is that you won't actually be able to see all of them at the same time, so you'll have to move around a little bit, but you'll be able to see quite a few of them at the same time. So, yeah, it's exciting. Any other questions? Comments? More Skeeter pictures? Okay, well, I'll be here. You can talk to me. You can email me. I'm getting a new okay. The other thing I have to announce is that UB Art Galleries is getting a new website by the end of the year, and it is going to be so much nicer. So just look out for that. As you know, I don't know if anyone has gone on the website. It's pretty horrible. So I'm changing that too. So I'm really excited. Anyway, thank you guys so much for coming.